Hello, everyone. My name is Chubi.
And I'm Vanessa, and welcome to No
No
Filters,
filters,
No
no
Fears
fears
Pod.
podcast. Today's elephant is a level 3, just to let everybody know. A 3.
Today's episode is about NRE, New Relationship Energy. I will go. We're gonna do it like this, and then we'll say our individual definitions of this. But Julie, do you have a definition? I love this part. I know it's really cheesy, but I love it.
Hey, it makes you happy. We're
It
okay with
does.
this. New relationship energy is strong emotional, physical, and sexual response you have towards someone when you are in a new relationship with them. It starts from initial attraction and can last anywhere from 3 months to a year.
New relationship energy, it's something typically associated, and I don't know why it's typically associated like this, but it's typically associated with non-monogamous or polyamorous relationships. But in reality, it is not exclusive to it because we know what it feels like to be in a new relationship and be all about it, and it kind of envelops us for a bit, and we just want to be with that person all the time and all that good stuff. And our relationships, which we know what that means to me, not doesn't have to be romantic, doesn't have to be, but our family, our friends, people start to feel the difference. They start to notice our absence sometimes and things like that. And I'm not saying we all do it, but it happens. We've all done it at one point or another. So it's not exclusive. I think it happens in all relationships, and it happens even amongst friendships. Like you get a new friend and you're so excited and you're spending so much time, and a friend that's been around for a while is like, well, what the deuce?
Right.
What about me? So new relationship energy, I feel, is pretty universal. What has your experience, y'all, the audience, been with NRE, new relationship energy? And what's your opinion on it? Because maybe yours is vastly different from mine. If you are non-monogamous or in a polyamorous relationship, you might have a different interpretation of it. If you are solely monogamous, you might have a different interpretation of it. So I would love to know what y'all think. What's your take on new relationship energy?
I mean, like you told me before, we've been through it, but I didn't think I knew more about it than I already, was researching. But it's true. You get into a new relationship. It could be with a friend or an actual romantic relationship. And I didn't know that this was associated with the honeymoon stage, where everything's good and you're learning about the person and you're fucking happy and you're like, oh my God, them rose-colored glasses, and you're like, you know hard eyes all the time and lovey-dovey and all that good
Right.
stuff, and you're learning about them. But as we know, eventually, let's say 6 months down the line, 7 months into the relationship, starts settling down to where, like, you already know their quirky things, or like things you don't like
Right.
about them, or their annoyance and this and that. And that also applies to when you even get married, because you now went from having a boyfriend girlfriend, or whatever your girlfriend relationship, whatever your relationship is, to then being married to them. And that is also a new energy relationship there, because now you're spouses, so you don't even so it's two different dynamics there. And I mean, to those who are married, how did you guys feel when you guys went from dating to then marrying the person? Because I'm assuming it's still new, also, because it's like, wow, now they're my spouse. What are we gonna do? Hi, Krisha. You know, and it's like,
Hi.
so to me, who doesn't like being, in a new relationship? I think everybody likes the beginning stages. I don't think anybody likes
Right.
the stage after the year. You're like, no,
I
no.
know
But
it's really interesting. And I've had this conversation before with multiple friends. It's and partners. It's like it's a conversation that you have,
right,
because I think it happens that you know it to be, it has a time period, and it usually ends, like you said, a year or 2 years. And you kind of do want it to end because that intense excitement um all the time, kind of like we notice that it affects other parts of life. So like for it to kind of settle into a more functional kind of dynamic, I totally get. But it's really nice to still be able to kind of maintain those things of still being able to learn something new about this person and experience new things with them. And that's what I guess, they call the keeping it fresh, and keeping the excitement and the for a romantic relationship, the romance, for a friendship, the new discovery, right? And I love that game that we played live. We're Not Really Strangers
Yeah.
is a great example of a kind of game that I've played with someone that I had just met, and I've played it with my best friend of over 20 years, right? And we know each other, and still we were able to discover new things about one another. Look, we've known each other for what, like 7
Yeah.
7 years or so, and we learn new things about each other. It's that excitement.
Yeah.
I want to so bad. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
That's
that's the thing.
the kind of thing that is nice to be able to maintain.
And that's the thing. Most people stop doing that once they get into the relationship. They're like, I got them. I don't need to romance them again. And that is where I find a problem, because I'm like, no. Once you have the person, keep at it, keep romancing, and keep being, like.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But I think that you don't think that it's a balance also, because that's putting a lot of pressure. It's like, ¿cómo explico? Yes. Make it a point, take that time with each other, but at the same time, it's like the fact that we put that expectation on people in relationships to always keep something fresh. It's like, I think that's why it dies off after a year, because it becomes exhausting mentally, physically, right? It's not because you're tired of that person, you don't want to put in that effort anymore. It's just like, it's a lot. So you now learn to like harness it to very special moments. And that energy of when you see them, you still get the butterflies. That's now in a different place, because it's not just about the excitement of the new, it's the excitement of it's still here. How lovely.
Yeah,
Right?
and that's what I mean. Like, I just feel like it has to be from both people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, let's say a holiday's coming up and that person celebrates it and you don't, but you want to see them happy. What are you gonna do? You're gonna put your foot forward and you're gonna celebrate it with them and make them feel special.
Yeah.
How hard is that? But most people will not. Most people are like, oh, I don't care, and not bother.
Right. If it's not important if it's not, and the thing is, you find a middle ground. If it's not important to you, pero no te va a matar. It's not gonna like quitarte un pedazo. Like, you're not gonna lose something from yourself. Then what is the harm in kind of like, I know this is meaningful to this other person, right? That's the love language bit. But if it really is gonna take something from you, then don't, and that's a conversation to be had.
Exactly.
But you find that happy balance. But it's funny because in talking about it like this, it's easy.
Oh,
but when you're the one in the situation, in that NRE feeling, and maybe for one person it lasts longer than the other, then I feel like certain tensions come into play. Right. And I'm talking about this is before we get into like how the tentacles of NRE go out into our other relationships.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the interpersonal NRE, right? With that person that you're feeling it for. Or persons.
Right.
If it lasts longer for one person than the other, or it's difficult.
I mean, I also believe
because then like the psychological part comes into play.
Right, because then you start feeling doubtful about certain things, because what used to be there at the beginning is no longer there. But I feel like that's because you guys are not growing together in the relationship to make it that mature relationship that you talked about.
But it could mean that
it's funny because like I would totally take it that way. Some like there's the potential to really take it personally and be like, there's something
Wrong.
they learned something about me they don't like. There's something wrong, right? And it's over. It's done. It catastrophized the entire situation.
Right.
But there's also the space for, you know, that there isn't anything wrong. That person might just be in the stage of having found that comfortability and in the relationship in a different way, and the excitement for them comes from a different place than that intense. You know, I know people that are really great about measuring their NRE, not because they're trying to deny that other person anything, but
Right.
because they don't want to get carried away and kind of create certain patterns and habits in that new dynamic that they cannot maintain,
Right.
right? Unless they discuss that, you know, I'm really excited and I want to give into this, but it's not something I can maintain. But those kind of conversations are difficult to have because they're not necessarily organic unless it comes up that somebody wants to spend a lot of time, the other one doesn't. And it's like, oh, well, let me explain. It's not that I don't care about you. It's just that like, I don't want to lose track of my things. Right. And then look back and be like, because then
Right.
that creates a new situation. Now you're resentful of time you invested that you really wanted to invest. You're not. So it's like, it's healthy to pay attention to how much you deep dive, not just for the sake of that other individual, but for your own sake. And then the sake of the other people around you that could potentially feel ignored or abandoned.
Not to say not every relationship starts like an NRE relationship with that feeling. Some just start, I don't know how to say it, like they just start off like, oh, we like each other, but it's new. Like you're in La La Land all the time. It just starts off like, I guess you skip that honeymoon stage and you're already there, like, okay, we're good, and we still like each other and everything's
It
good.
feels like you've been together forever, but like
Right.
in a good way.
Right, exactly. Some relationship starts off like that. But I just feel like when you are in that NRE relationship, you have to keep it realistic, one, and two, keep it honest. In order for, like, what do you want in this relationship? What would you like for us to have in the future? Like, what do you want of 6 months from now? I just feel like if you keep it honest with the other person, and and the goals that you both want to share in a way, because you don't want to waste your time getting to know somebody in the relationship a una mierda, and then a year from now they're like, oh, but this is not what I wanted.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I it's also like NRE is just really interesting. Different for every person.
Exactly, yes.
And what it looks like and what it means. And when and what it feels like when you're not when you're not experiencing it so heavily anymore. Like the things that your mind starts to tell you, right?
Right.
Like Dr. Brené Brown says, your mind starts telling itself stories about what it means to not have certain ways of engaging with this person. And before I said abandonment, I would like to retract that. That was a really heavy word. I meant neglect, which is still a heavy word, but it kind of feels neglectful or like you're being
Mhm.
neglected and um the energy is being placed solely on one person. You're like, but we were gonna hang out on Tuesday. What happened, bro? Like, you know, which brings us to that, how NRE affects those around us. What's your take on that? Because sometimes people, like, if you have a really good friend, they'll call you on it. Be like, yeah, when you're in a relationship, that be like it's over.
I can't speak for my own self, but now I don't know. I just feel like you have an event coming up with your spouse or your partner, whatever, and you already committed to that, but you want to hang out with your family or friends. I feel like you should honor the partner and just go to that event. But if it's backwards, you already like hanging out with your family, and then your partner wants to I don't know, do something. I don't know. I think communication, obviously communication at all times. Just, I don't know, talk to them and be like, well, I just want to hang out with my family, so then we could, I don't know, hang out later, or I don't know, just talk and see how you could work through that. But I just try to give equal time to everybody. That's how I am. I just try to hang out with everybody, and if I can, I can. If I can, I can. That's it. Like, I'm not gonna stretch myself thin if I'm not gonna be able to at all.
I agree with you that communication is a very important factor. But I think it's so dependent on dynamic and what this NRE situation is, right?
Right.
Because if it's, for example, this kind of new relationship energy in a friendship dynamic, right? Solely platonic kind of scenario, like you start to, it's happened to me where it's like I get very excited about a new friendship that I've learned so much, and I'm learning new places, and I'm learning new music, and I'm learning new things, and that my friends that have been around for a really long time, they're like, um, what happened to our sharing time? And I don't realize, and it's not because I'm not making time with them. We'll talk or whatever, but it's the shift is off.
Yeah.
And it's good to have those friends from a long time call you on it, be like, but it's also, I guess, a lot in the way that we say things. So when it sounds like a complaint, you get defensive and you're like, I give you time, I talk to you.
Right.
Whereas if we communicate it maybe as, hey, you're spending this amount of time and I see you really happy, but I kind of feel like left out. Like I miss you, would like to spend more time with you. You don't even have to bring in the new situation. Just be like, hey, I'm missing you. I don't feel like we're spending time like we used to. Can we?
Yeah.
That has made a difference for me. Because when people have called me out on that kind of thing in that way, I'm like, damn, yeah, let's do that. Let's make time. And I've gotten a lot better about like you being like you, in the sense that, I'm sorry, I'm pointing at you, like um more equally dividing time and making sure to make time with different people and in different situations, individually and in group. Sometimes that works well, sometimes it doesn't.
I mean, you try your best. That's all you could do, because you're only one person and you can't literally, like I said, spread yourself so thin where everyone wants a piece of you, but you're like, okay, but these are important relationships to me, but I'm gonna give, what time I
And
can.
within those relationships, right? Estamos nosotros, like yourself.
Exactly, that too.
And sometimes you get so caught up in that new relationship energy, be it friend or romantic or whatever the case, that you forget about yourself. And you're like, you might find yourself feeling drained, or you're like, but why? And it's not necessarily because you've done all this physical activity. It's just because you're expending a lot of energy and putting a lot of energy into another situation.
Exactly.
And it's nice to take a minute and be like, and you could go into those either newer connections, or even the ones that have been, already in existence for a while, and going and learning and growing with refreshed. And like, it's nicer and you can appreciate it, like, ah, man, I missed you. I appreciate you in a different way. But it's also different, say, like we're talking friendship wise, it's different in a romantic
Right.
situation. Where you're like, if you're in a monogamous situation, your friends feel like they're losing you to this new partner. And it's a even, and I think the reason that it's most associated so much with non-monogamous and polyamorous relationships is because how heavily it must be felt, or how heavily it is felt. It must, like it is felt when you have multiple romantic relationships going on, and it's fully consensual and you're understanding this, but you're also feeling, polyamorous and non-monogamous people are not devoid of jealousy or insecurity. And now you're seeing your partner share and develop and communicate in ways that maybe you've longed for, maybe you've wanted, or maybe in a way that you cannot offer. And it causes a little like, I You know what I mean? What is your take on like romantic NRE when in terms of friends, family?
I don't know. I was just thinking about that while you were talking about, polyamory relationship. I always been the type of person that I'm like, if I'm with you, I don't care if you're a friend or family or whatever, go do your life. We'll talk whenever, and I can't wait to hear about your weekend or your day. Oh my God, let me see. But at the same time, I don't want it to be like yes, I miss you and I miss hanging out with you or whatever, but I want to have, to do my life and still be able to, come to you and be like, oh, hey, this is what I did, this is where I'm going, and whatever, and go be able to talk to you without you feeling like I've neglected the person. I
Right.
want them to have their own identity, their own life, their own everything, and we come together when we're able to, like, oh, I'm free now. Let's chat for a bit. Let's hang out. You know, that's how I feel. Like just live your life.
Right. Not be all encompassing.
Like you're with someone and then that's good and nice and oh my God, I can't wait. But live your life, and you're in this new relationship.
From the people watching, what has when you're going into a new relationship, be it with a friend or romantically, what are things that you notice that you put like kind of like horse blinders on and you're like full energy into that you've been called out on by other people maybe? Or how does it make you feel when you've experienced it? Have you experienced that where like you're very close with someone and you're kind of used to having a certain amount of contact and engagement with them, and then they get wrapped up in not work, not whatever, but like another person, and now they're like your kind of dynamic is it shifts. Like how does that felt for you?
Well, I feel like the thought that was going through my head is like, okay, so you didn't have anybody, so you just gave me all the energy you have because you didn't have anyone. That's literally how I felt. So now that you have someone, okay, here you go. Like it was just like, oh, here you go. So I don't know. Like that's why I try to distribute my time with everybody so nobody could feel like that, because it's like I wasn't just hanging out with you because I didn't have any other friend or anybody
Right.
else. My relationship wasn't there. It's just that I want to give
But
it to
is that fair? I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds really like it sounds like a shitty feeling, but at the same time, I don't necessarily feel like somebody would do that intentionally. If it is that it's they have people in their life, it's just they have this like I talk with friends or whatever, and it just so happens that they have more of that communication. But now they have this new they started, I don't know, jet skiing, and they found a new jet ski buddy. And so now they have that new interest and they're really excited and really heavy into it. And so they're exploring the most of it and they have that in common with this other person. And they talk to you about that day and that situation and their new hobby and that new friend. But I don't feel like they're replacing you with said friend or like,
Oh,
not, right? I don't think like it's like, oh, I didn't have anybody. So now
no, I'm
my
not saying
friend is for you. It's
that's
like,
at all.
right.
That's
It's
not
like,
at all. But the feeling felt like it, but I knew that it was just they're exploring, and that was fine. So yeah, no, but
right.
sometimes.
O sea, like if you have pizza, you're gonna eat pizza, you're not gonna eat the whole pizza. Right? But if
Wow.
you have pizza and a salad, you're like, oh, I'm gonna have pizza and some salad.
Yeah.
And now there's a little bit for everybody.
No, yeah, no, but that's
I
why.
don't know, that made sense. It made sense in here.
But that's why I try to give my time equally to other important people in my life, because you gotta appreciate them. You gotta appreciate them in little ways, and it doesn't matter what type of relationship it is. You just appreciate it a little bit, here and there, just so they can know, hey, I'm still here. Pero a la misma vez, you can't get so involved with this one person that you forget the world. When I was younger, it did happen. Oh,
Right.
we got a comment.
Oh, please read.
Um,
Thank you, Krisa.
It is from Krisha. She says, a few years ago, I made a new best friend. We spent every day together. Then a few months later, I got a new girlfriend. The best friend got jealous and I lost that friendship. Did not feel great, and the best friend wasn't receptive when I did did try to split my time. Wow. Well, that friend was not understanding.
That's really interesting. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, Krisha, because we talked about it a little bit before we started the episode, where it's like sometimes backwards, actually, a relationship may not understand the closeness of a friendship. I'm really sorry that you went through that, Krisha, and that your friend got jealous of a new partner. I can understand that happening, but the fact that they didn't approach you and like talk it out,
Right. And try to
I'm
understand.
kind of glad that person's not your friend no more. Let them come back when they figured out they shit. You
That's
know?
I'm just saying a friend would not a real friend that didn't have any other interest, they would not do that to a person. Like if you're a friend, try to understand what's going on. Like, hey, I feel like you said, why didn't they talk to her about it? But
Right. And it could have just been their own insecurity and maybe they just didn't want to deal with it. That's why I'm saying, like, when they figure that out of why that was such an issue for them, they'll come back into your life. But if at that moment the only way of dealing was to extract themselves, that had nothing to do with you. But it's
oh right,
unfortunate that they sacrificed a friendship for something that one thing didn't have to do with the other.
right,
I
that
mean, what we were talking about before is like how a partner might feel, and this is whether you're monogamous, non-monogamous, polyamorous, like whatever your relationship dynamic may be. They tried to be friends again recently, but it's totally not the same. Okay, well, not the same. Maybe because maybe you still have some feels about how it ended in the first place. Maybe it's worth
or
a combo.
sometimes it's just not worth going back to it. It's just like pasó, and that's it. Let's move on. It is what it is.
But
To
clearly,
I
Krisha
mean, I know
wanted to
there is.
raise the friendship. Just because the friendship is different, because the dynamic is different, doesn't mean it's bad. It's
No,
different, maybe that's okay. And if it develops into what it was before, and then maybe you guys can, in now a more mature space, recognize why that was such a problem for them then.
right,
We had talked about before was like a partner getting upset about a close relationship with a friend. And I said, my friendships, I have friendships of forever. I just talked about my friend of like 20 plus years. You know what I'm saying? Very close, very intimate friendships that I wouldn't sacrifice for the world, and that I put equal effort like I would into a romantic relationship, because all relationships deserve
right,
intention and time and care. Um, there are some slight differences when it comes to like time and like I care about you and I want to make you feel loved and cared for and appreciated. There's no difference.
right.
Um, and I had a conversation with someone that said, it's interesting to me that you feel the way you feel about certain relationships because of how you maintain your friendships, and that's worked for you in a relationship. I'm like, why wouldn't it? And I
Right.
guess I hadn't recognized how privileged I'd been to have partners that appreciate and understand these friendships that I hold so near and dear to my heart and don't get jealous of it. And the time that I spend in it without including them, or, you know what I'm saying? I didn't realize that was a thing. Has that ever been a thing for you?
Not really. None of my relationship and friendships have ever collided in any way.
Like I've seen it happen. Like I've seen, especially unfortunately, and I guess understandably, like I've seen it happen where it's like if a girl is besties with a guy or a guy is besties with, like, my ex-husband's best friend was a girl. And at first I was like, because that's what society teaches us. I was like, eh?
Right, right.
And then I was like, oh no, like they're besties and like it's beautiful. And she took the time to like not become my bestie, but acknowledge me and like show me like, hey, respect. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it was appreciated. And they had their time that I did not need to be a part of, and then we had our time. So, but I've seen people get really, really jealous in those scenarios, which is understandable because you're like, wait, there might be something fishy. But like for a husband or like to get upset about friends, I don't know.
I don't know. I just feel like everybody one, when you get with somebody, we had a life before we met them, and I say this all the time. We had a life before we met the person we're with, the friend we're with. So our friendships, if you're jealous of a friendship, talk, say why. Because first of all, I believe that friendships, they, like, like how we've had 15 plus 20 years of friendships, even 10, they don't just come by like that. Friendship, relationships come and go. So what? I had a friend for 15 years because of a relationship. If you're feeling
Well,
this way,
okay, devil's advocate, here I come. If they, I, and here I'm not excusing it because I totally agree with you. Like there's a balance. You want to get into the conversation of like, what's the real insecurity? Why?
right,
Because number one, I have opinions on jealousy, right? I can totally understand it. I felt it. I'm human. But sometimes you have to measure where that jealousy is coming from, because if it has to do with, you have to really consider it could be coming off as like you're not trusting your partner. And if you trust your partner, then it's an insecurity. And if it's an insecurity, what's the insecurity about?
right, exactly. You have to work through that.
There's always a chance for something fishy to happen. Right. But that comes from something else.
It does, and I just feel like if you trust your partner, which you should, I feel like
The communication could be a thing. Oh, what's happening? Oh, Brian, I didn't even see that.
you want to read it.
Yeah. When I'm in a serious romantic relationship, especially early on, I hope we can keep our independence. Yes. Autonomy. 1000%. And also stay excited about seeing each other for as long as possible. By being too available, it becomes easier to eventually take one another for granted. Wow, very wise. I've always disliked having friends who disappeared whenever they're dating someone. By maintaining some distance, it can make sure we didn't neglect others. We didn't neglect others who are also important to spend time with, like those close family and friends. Is there more?
I'm not sure if there is, but I don't see
It
anything
wasn't
else.
A. That was marvelously put. And mind you, I am a fan of autonomy now. Like I had to learn that in my most recent relationships, because I was a person was like, but I don't understand. And even though like my ex-husband and I were really good about giving each other our own space and being that way, I still in a lot of ways had to learn how to give myself my space and give my partner their space, right? And then in meeting the new friendships, also learn to kind of honor
All right.
these exchanges of energy. And when somebody would come into their life to like woosa, right? Because it could be difficult. You're used to a certain amount of energy exchange and it shifts. And you want to be the person that goes with the flow, and you go with the ebbing and the flowing and the thing. And sometimes it's a reality and sometimes it's a shock to the system and it sucks, and there's a lot to be said. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, well, we're getting to the nitty gritty of the episode. We're getting to the end of this.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to be said, like we've talked about in other episodes, attachment styles and things like that, and how that comes into play when we're in these particular situations that might trigger us into
Right.
feeling less than or forgotten or not wanted. A nice exchange to like provide a little reassurance or a little reminder and intentional time with the people that have been a part of your life. But it's also creating that boundary and kind of holding your ground of like, this is important to me because like I'm not forgetting you kind of deal. And also in the other person realizing in their insecurities that, I have to work on. I appreciate you reassuring me. I see you here. I like accepting that they're trying to be there for you and show you that you're important to them. And also realizing that you don't want to take something important away from them just because you're feeling butthurt about something.
Going back to what Brian was saying about being independent. After my first serious relationship that went crap, I realized, and it wasn't that good of a relationship. Um, But I learned from that relationship that I like being with somebody but still being independent. Like I don't want to be like, ¿Qué tú haces? ¿Con qué tú estás? What are you doing? You know, like asking all these like very untrustworthy questions, like, you know. And but I still like being with the person and be like, hey, you want to hang out? Hey, you know, I miss you. But give me time to do that. Give me time to miss you. Because if I don't, you know, you give me time para respirar, like what are you know? Was deeper than, you know, more than what it was. So, you know, it depends on that new relationship, you know, energy, and how good it is or how bad it is, you know.
Right. But I also hear, and like, we're also, I'm glad I can include myself in this, but I also hear you that you're in like, because of that relationship, and because you've been in other relationships that have taught you, like you've grown from and through, right? And we've talked about the work that we've both done, from who we've been in the past to like where we're at now. I hear you being in that stage now where the NRE, you're one of those people that manages the NRE, not to deny someone your true feelings or anything like that, but to measure it so that it can last, and so that you can find a sustainable dynamic,
Yeah,
versus like te lo doy todo and we get the wrong idea and then we're on
yeah,
each other's nerves.
exactly.
But I think there is still a lot to be said, because I am a hopeless romantic, that
Me too.
there's there's a lot to be said for like keeping the romance alive, not assuming that you know everything about a person forever. Even within relationships, we evolve individually, and there's always a new surprise that we can share with somebody who's known us forever.
Right.
And that's the most beautiful thing, allowing somebody to grow in front of your eyes and walk beside them through that journey, and them allowing you that space to be different from who they initially met. And the hope is that you can, even though you've grown, changed, and become different in ways, or grown from certain hurts, or grown from certain things, that you can still be on that path together, you know, and that even if it's not, it wasn't a waste of time. There's things that can totally be considered a waste of time.
Yeah.
But for the most part, man, what relationship hasn't taught us to be a better self? Brian said something. Yay.
He said, to me, a good relationship is about being able to let down many of the barriers we put up for our ego to survive, while also remaining a challenge at times. Most a relationship are not built to last forever, but that's the reason as time goes on, we hopefully stop taking the special ones for granted. Man, did we learn that lesson. I mean, I never took anybody for granted, but you know, like Brian said, put the
There are
barrier.
people that do,
Yeah.
and that they forget what they have just for the exciting moment. See, those are interesting to me. Like, finding that balance, yes, I totally get it. But when someone so unconsciously delves into these new worlds and is oblivious and does take for granted what is already existent, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can appreciate that they come back to you revived, renewed, and with new things to share. And at the same time, sometimes you feel like, well, so now I'm not as interesting, I'm not as cool, I'm not as fun, or like those things were experienced with me as well. Like, why isn't it as important? Like, it's totally a self thing, but at the same time, sometimes some people really do treat you like that. They completely forget, and they don't realize that they're not showing the same appreciation. So that is shitty.
Do you have your Cody quotes?
I do have one. I wanted to have more, but you can totally look this person up. Avita Sawyer on Instagram. Like I said, NRE is associated a lot with polyamory and non-monogamous relationships. This person is like a coach and things like that, and helps a lot of people in polyamorous relationships. But their quotes and the information about relationship dynamics are universal.
Mm-hmm.
They might seem like they're geared solely towards polyamory, but I really believe that a lot can be learned, right? From it. for all relationships. And it talks a lot about NRE and like how not to lose ourselves in that kind of energy for the sake of that new connection and for the sake of existing connections. It's only one, but I'm gonna do it. Okay.
That's fine.
Play
Yeah.
my musiquita. Yay!
She gets so
that makes me happy.
excited. Thank you, Brian.
The first Brody quote is, and I cannot see the person's name, when you stop expecting people to be perfect, you can like them for who they are. Donald Miller. And the reason I like this one is because, yes, NRE is about, you know, getting lost in that energy. But sometimes when we begin to kind of settle into that dynamic and it's not all intense, we have that expectation of that maintenance of that intense energy and that perfection of like, oh, the detail all the time. All those details are beautiful. If you can maintain that, amazing. But if you're not, and to have that expectation on someone, is going to, I feel, detract from all the other beautiful things that you can experience and exchange in that dynamic. So when you take that away, you can like them for who they are, what they truly can offer consistently, which is themselves. And that doesn't always mean that they're going to be tip-top shape. And to expect that from someone is really heavy on them and heavy on you because you're feeling all sad and hurt that you're not getting that. And also heavy on the relationship.
Right.
And then, of course, Brené Brown, because we must. And this is a broader one. Yes, it's associated to NRE, but in general, connection. I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. How lovely to feel that in the immediate exchange of NRE, but how lovely when it is maintained.
Exactly.
What are your final thoughts, questions, comments, concerns?
Well, since you can't hear me, just stay there and watch what I'm saying. Okay. Just constantly work on your communication, your communication skills with your partner, and just try to be honest as possible where you guys both stand at all times, and just be honest with what's going on, with how you're feeling. If you're not feeling loved, if you just let them know where you stand. Just remind yourself that the new relationship energy will fade, but keeping it fresh and making sure you show that you care for each other and that you appreciate and admire and adore them and accept them for who they are, and try to just be with them as much as you can. Before we go.
Yes. I look for someone who will listen but have opinions of their own, who will stand up for themselves and not come on too strong or try too hard. Someone who's generally positive and has good personality and heart. Someone who treats me with respect, has a sense of humor, and doesn't take themselves too seriously. That's lovely. Yeah. I mean, my final thought, question, comment, concern is NRE is really exciting. It's delicious. I love having a crush, and that feeling and that excitement to hear their voice or to exchange text messages, like the lighting up when you see a message from that person. And it doesn't just have to be the crush of like that new friend. Oh my gosh, how exciting, because when you connect with somebody and like you just vibe and you're like, oh my God, I'm so excited to talk to them. What are we gonna like, are we going to end up talking for 4 hours again? Is that even possible? That's exciting. To be excited about another human being that you have things in common with, or that you feel has nurtured your soul in some way. And that's beautiful. I think it's important to keep those lines of communication open and to speak honest and vulnerably with those around us, because right, the person you're experiencing NRE with, it's important to kind of manage it so that way the expectations aren't set to a place where you're going to end up letting each other down, so to speak,
Yeah,
or making each other feel like there was a lie said somewhere when there wasn't. There's no deal being made. It's genuine excitement.
exactly.
But definitely with those around us that can also be affected, depending on what your dynamic is, be very cognizant of what your dynamics are with your relationships around you, because those conversations and vulnerability and like receptivity to how this new energy might be affecting those around you is also valid, and important. So be aware and be true to you. And don't forget to give time to yourself
Oh,
so
yeah.
that you can give the best of you to those around you without feeling like you've lost yourself in these relationships. We're already on episode 36.
Yeah. 4 more or 3 more.
Four more. Or
Three.
three. Yeah, exactly. And then we're in season 4. How crazy pants.
I
It's
know.
almost our anniversary.
Yeah, April's coming. What? Oh, we have one more comment.
Ooh, wait, no, Krisha just lit a match.
She says, I dislike NRE as unavoidable as it is. Screw the excitement. Do mundane things with me.
I feel you. I feel you. I mean, to each his own. I think NRE can be exciting, and mundane things are special. Like, when have you ever seen those shows with little kids where they ask them what's love? Right. And little kids say really random shit of what their perception of love is by virtue of what they've seen their parents do, right? So they're like, when daddy puts on too much cologne, but mommy still likes it. When mommy farts, but daddy says it smells like roses. Like, that's mundane, that's crazy, and it's kind of gross. But that's cute, and those are those mundane things that are simple. Like, hey, did you eat today? That's mundane, but like, it's here, it's real. But those exciting things are equally as important,
Right.
because routine takes its toll on you, on all of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In one way or another. So I think it's important to know how much mundane is too much mundane.
Right. Talk to the person, and that's it. Communication.
Yeah.
Again, communication. Talk to the person.
Right. But that's why that's why I said the whole thing about sustainable. Like, don't do shit. Like, things are exciting in the moment, but if you are saying it like, this is how I am always, that's some bullshit. That's false advertising.
Right.
But also to expect that that's how someone is always is delusional. It's like, let them be human. Let them have a minute. Okay. It's not always like that.
Right.
But it just is exciting. And exciting is natural to be so excited about a human being, a new energy in your space, in your orbit. It is exciting and delicious, but don't get lost in it.
Exactly. Keep it real. But stay fearless, everyone, and have a good night. We are out.
Adios, buenos nachos.